All right. Today I am going to take some time and walk through building a CO2 dragster. I am going to include expectations that you must have in your drawing in order for me to not only grade the work, but for you to get a grade. The first of these expectations being we will put every individual part, each, the front wheel, the rear wheel, the axle, the body, those types of things, anything we're going to use into a separate part studio. It must be this way, or I will not grade your work. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and think about the parts I need, and I'm going to create a new part studio for each of those parts. Looking down here at the bottom left-hand corner of my document, I see Part Studio 1. I'm going to right-click that and rename it Front Wheel. After I've clicked and that name has been changed, I'm going to go ahead and insert a new element by clicking the plus sign, create a new part studio, and then I am going to rename that part studio Rear Wheel. Now I have two places to draw on within the same document, one for the front wheel, one for the rear wheel. I'm going to go ahead and create a part studio for my axle. Let's see, I need to get that out of my way. I'm going to rename this axle. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and put a 1 there, just in case I need two different size axles. Then I am going to create another part studio, and I am going to name that part car body. So now I have 4 separate parts within the same document. Those parts which will be assembled here in the assembly tab at a later date. For each of these parts, I'm going to complete them in the most simplistic term, so that you have something you can follow and get caught back up on. You can always make your wheels, look better, look worse, whatever, things of that nature. But I'm just going to start this way for clarity and in hopes that you are, doing more with your own critical and creative thinking. Okay, so the first wheel I'm going to make it 36 millimeters in diameter, and I'm going to go ahead and take it to the 5 millimeter maximum thickness. And then I'm simply going to add a hole in the center of that will allow the axle to slip into the hole. So I'm going to double check up here and make sure my units are in millimeters. Say okay. And then I'm going to create a new sketch on the right screen. I am going to draw a circle, and I am going to make that 36 millimeters with entering the measurement. I'm going to say okay to that. I am going to extrude that circle 5 millimeters. Say okay to that. I am then going to select the surface of the wheel, and I'm going to select it on this other side. So I just know that it will be easier for me to connect to the car body that way later on. I'm going to make a new sketch, and I am going to place a hole in the very center of that, a circle, and I am going to make that 3.175 millimeters, which I know that's the diameter of my axle because my axle is 1/8. I am going to say okay to that. And then I'm going to extrude this, say 3 millimeters, removing material into the hole and saying okay. Okay, this at this moment meets the specifications for the front wheel. Okay, so there we go. That's my wheel. It's in the front tab. I'm going to go ahead and roll with it. And then I am going to jump over and create my rear wheel. For my rear wheel, I'm going to just basically follow the same process. I'm going to create a new sketch in the right side, pardon me. I am going to make the diameter of my rear wheel 36 millimeters because I know that's within the specifications. I'm going to say okay to that. I am going to click on the surface of the wheel and extrude it, and I'm going to extrude it the maximum distance that's allowed, which is 19 millimeters. And I'm going to say okay. Then I'm going to roll it over. Back here where my point of origin is, I'm going to create a new sketch. I am going to create a circle on that sketch, 3.175 millimeters, so that it's the size of the axle itself. Say okay. And then I am going to select that area and I am going to remove maybe 10 millimeters of the material and say okay. So now, by argument's sake, I have both a rear wheel and a front wheel for my dragster. You know, that's all that's needed to do to at least have a drawing within the specifications. You know, may not be pretty, but it's, you know, correct. Now, as far as axles go, I know what the diameter is, but I do not know the length of my axles until I create the car body. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work on creating the car body, but I'm hoping I can't find out how to pause this. Okay, well, maybe I can't pause it. So let's just jump over here real quick and make sure what measurements I'm allowed to use for the car body. I had written them down and seem to have misplaced them. So I'm going to jump up here and look at it real quick. The car body can be a maximum of 305 millimeters long. So I think I'll just go ahead and jump over here in car body. Why is there a sketch in there? Rear wheel, front wheel. Okay, I intentionally put my front wheel in the car body. So I'm going to just go ahead and rename this car body. And then I'm going to jump over here and rename it front wheel, so I don't have to do a lot of switching around and then get back in my car body part. That simple. You know, things happen to all of us. I'm going to create a new sketch in the right plane. This time I'm going to turn it where I can see it a little bit better, since I'll be drawing things from the complete right view. It was 305 millimeters long, so I am going to, and I don't like to be on my point of origin for most things, especially if I'm trying to free draw. So I'm going to make that 305, and I am going to go back and look at my specs and see what I need to think about. The dragster body height with wheels is a maximum of 3 inches. Or 76 millimeters. So I have to think about that for a minute. 76 millimeters is the maximum height. The axle hole, you know, because that's going to determine my wheel placement for overall height, should be at least 10 millimeters. You know, that's the most, 10 millimeters to the center point. So I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to go over here and think about, and it can be up to 100 millimeters from the rear end. So, and up to 100 millimeters from the front. I don't really want to place them that far apart right now. So I'm going to go ahead and think about this, jump over here. I'm going to escape that line for a second, and I'm going to draw me some construction lines. I'm going to go here, I'm going to go up, and I'm going to make that 10 millimeters. And I'm just going to pull this over here nice and flat and hit escape. Then I know that that is, 10 millimeters up from the bottom of my vehicle. So that will be where the center point of my axle lives. I know I have a 36 millimeter axle. 36 millimeter diameter wheel. So I can measure from here down and know where the base of my wheel will set, which is important for the overall design. But I kind of want to figure out how far I want to go with this. And I'm just going to go over, a couple, 2-3 inches to do that. And I'm going to use this calculator. Let's see. Let's say I'm going to just go over 3 inches, 76 millimeters, basically. So I am going to keep with my construction line for a minute. And I'm going to come down here, just pull a random. It's not letting me, it's not drawing a line. So I'm going to pull a random line length down here, and I'm going to pop over here and make this 76. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, I'm in the right place. Then I'm going to go up and touch this line and say, okay. So at this moment in time, I know that this point will be the center of my hole that goes through the rear part of the body of my car for putting the wheel in place. And I know that that hole needs to be just a little bit bigger than the 1/8 inch of the axle, or the 3.175 millimeter diameter of the axle. So I am going to make it 3/16, which is also in millimeters is 4.7625. So I'm going to slide in here with the circle tool, and I am going to put me a hole that is 4.7625. And that's where my axle will live that supports my tire. Now back to that other thing. I know that my center point of my axle determines the overall point at which the surface of my rear wheel will touch the table. And I know that my rear wheel was 18 millimeters. So with that said, I'm going to, hopefully I've got enough constraints in place. I'm going to go ahead and pull a measurement here and just call it 18. And sure enough, since I had it constrained at the front, since I had this set at 10 here, that line didn't move, only this one did. Now that is the very bottom of my wheel. So how does that help me? That helps me because my overall height of my body can only be 3 inches or 76 millimeters. With that in mind, I can go from here and I can take this and maybe just slide it back a little bit. No, it wouldn't let me. But I can go from this with a construction line. I can go from this bottom point where the wheel touches the surface, pull a little bit of a line over, go up here and click this and change it to 76. Now I know for a fact that's the tallest my car can be. That's the point where when I start adding lines in, I cannot go above that. So I'm going to go ahead and complete part of my body. I'm going to, click on the object line here, go up and get this straight across. and you notice it's only 68. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to pull up a little bit just to give me some sort of an angular look to it. And then I am going to pull down to here. Now, I know that the front of that wood, because everybody asks me, well, how tall is that? It's a 1/2 inch. So what's a 1/2 inch in millimeters? I'm going to go back here and find it. 12.7. I'm going to go here, and just to make sure that I'm well within everything, I'm going to make this 12. So now, if you can forego looking at the construction lines, you see this shaded in area. That is the profile of my car. The only thing I'm missing is I am missing where my front wheel goes. And my front wheel is going to be, the same thing. It's going to be 4.76. And I believe I had 2.5, but it adjusted to 3. I would still type it in at 4.7625. And it said that it could be up to front axle hole up to 4 inches from the front, providing I maintain at least 4.5 inches between the two. So I'm going to go back to the body of my car, take a construction line. I'm going to go here, just down a little bit, and just over a little bit. Maybe I'll just go, roughly 2 inches. And 2 inches are, let's see, roughly 50 millimeters. And I'm going to type in 50, make sure that's there. Then I'm going to take this straight up and attach it to that line. Hit escape. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the hole, which was 4.7625, into the car body so that I know my front wheel lives there. And I know that because I drew my wheels the same height, and I've already used this construction line to make sure that I had the proper allowance from the bottom of the car. And the only thing I don't know for sure is, do I have at least 4.5 inches from here to here? I can go ahead and check that, because if I don't, then I can't use this. So I'm going to change this to 4.5. So I need at least 114.3. I am going to go ahead and take a quick measurement between these two just to make sure that I have that. And I have 179, so no problems there. So right now, everything about my car is within specifications. I am not over 3 inches tall. I have my wheels placed at locations that will allow me to meet the criteria of the design as provided by this sheet. I have 2 axle holes. My axle holes are not above 10 millimeters to the center. My rear axle hole is within the 4-inch max. My front axle hole is within the 4-inch max, and my wheelbase is within the 105 to 270 millimeters. So now I have that. The only thing I'm lacking is how thick is my material. So I have to look back at the Dragster body. And I look up here, and it has weight, width at front axle between 35 and 42 millimeters. And then it also has a maximum of 90 millimeters with the wheels. So I know that I made my wheels 19 millimeters wide in the rear. So if I take that 90 and I subtract 38 from it, then I'm going to get 52. And if I look at the maximum right here, it's 35 to 42. So I can make my car the 42 and be, fine. If I'll fall right within there. So I'm going to go back to the Dragster body, click that I have it drawn. I'm going to extrude this sketch, and I said 42 was max, so I'm going to go ahead and make it 42. And now if you look at this, this body, for argument's sake, it's not pretty, but it does meet the specifications of the drawing. It does not necessarily meet the weight requirements, and we'll have to check that, but it does meet the specs of the drawing. So now the only thing I'm missing is my motor, the hole for my CO2 cartridge. So I'm going to go back to this sketch and look at this for a minute, pull it in front of me and see what I have to know. And I have to know things by looking at the sheet. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to look at the sheet. So I'm going to click here and kind of move this along a little bit. The lowest point right down here of the CO2 cartridge to the surface, so that's at the bottom of the wheel, should be 26 to 43 millimeters. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make it just a little bit over 26. That way, if there's any play in my wheels or whatever, I'm safe. So I think I'm going to make it 28 millimeters to the lowest point. I also need to know the diameter of that hole. The housing inside diameter is 19.5. So I'm going to write that down. So I want to be up 30 millimeters to my hole, and I want to be 19.5 diameter on my hole. So I kind of jot that down because I don't want to have to keep looking back and forth. And I'm going to grab my car body, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another construction line just so I can get some measurements. Because see, the wheels aren't on here, so I need something to work with. So I'm going to go over here and grab this center point, and I'm going to go up 30 millimeters and hit enter. And then I'm going to pull it through the body, just because what I'm really looking for is, if I go to drill this hole, is how far is it from here to here, the bottom of my hole, not from the road, because then I'd have to have all my car built. I'd have to, measure everything, mark it all off, take it apart, drill the hole, and I don't want to be there. So I'm going to measure from here to here, and I'm going to discover that I need to be 22 millimeters up on the back side of this car to be at the bottom of my CO2 cartridge hole. I can just hit enter, I can hit escape, and I can say, okay, I know that. I'm going to write that down. So I need to go up 22 millimeters on the back and drill a hole in this wood. So to do that, I'm going to say okay to my sketch and get back here. I'm going to spin my car around to this side and create a new sketch, because this is where I'm going to drill my hole. And, that's on this back side. So I'm going to pull it right to me. I'm going to use a construction line again, and I am going to find my center point right here, because I want my hole to be in the center. I'm going to click this, I'm going to pull it up, and I am going to type in 22, and that is enter. And then I'm going to pull it up and put the dimension of my hole right there. So that's where my hole's going to live. It's going to live on this center point. So I'm going to escape there. I'm going to take me a circle. I am going to find the midpoint of this line by touching the square. I'm going to pull it down and touch the square. And now I have exactly where my motor must live in relationship to my drawing. So it goes right there. And I do need to jump back here because I forgot to write one thing down. The depth, somewhere between 50 and 59 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and put myself in somewhere close to the middle at 55. So I'm going to go back to my car body. I'm going to select this circle for extrusion. I'm going to extrude it. Naturally, it tries to add, but I want to remove. And I want to remove 55 millimeters of material and say, okay, now I have a legitimate car body. Now, this is within specifications, except, and I do add except very, very, cautiously. I have not weighed this, so I don't know. If it's too heavy, then I can't use it. But as far as meeting all the specifications, I definitely can use it. Okay. It is definitely within those measurements. All right. So now I have the front wheel, I have the rear wheel, and I just need to try to figure out how long my axles will be. And since I've made everything the same width, my axles will be similar, but not the same, most likely, because if you remember right, when you look at the rear wheel, this extrusion was 10 millimeters deep. So I have 10 millimeters. I'm going to keep that and write it down. So the axle will have to be 20 millimeters longer just to fit inside both wheels. So I hope that makes sense to you. So I have, plus at 20 right there. And then I'm going to go pop over here and look at my front wheel. And I want to see that second extrusion. I don't remember what it was. It's 3. So I need 6 there for the axle to fit inside those wheels. I'm going to jump back over to my car body. And the extrusion was 42 millimeters. So if I put the wheels, and here's the way I want you thinking. If I put the wheels tight against the body right now to where they're touching, which would be bad, but if I put them touching, then it would look a lot like this right here. And I'm going to jump out here and grab a paint real quick and give you, a visual of what's going on inside of my head. And we're going to look at the top view. So, currently, like this is let's say this is the top view of my dragster. And, I'm going to have let's say if I put my rear wheel here and a rear wheel here, and then I put my front wheels here. And, this is just a quick little, and it's not perfect, but it is what it is. So if I place these wheels tight against the body of the car, this one is 19, this one is 19, and this was 42. So this would be 62, 82 minus 2. From here to here would be 80 millimeters. All right. The wheels for the front were 5 and 5 and 42. So if I measured from there to there, I would have 52 millimeters wide at the front. Obviously, I need a little space between these. And I do have to account for how deep the axle sets into each wheel. So if you remember right, I said that the axle, and I'm going to blow this up a little bit here. I said that the axle would rest 10 millimeters up inside this. So the axle goes up inside this wheel 10 millimeters. So 10 plus 10 down here plus the width of the car would be 62 with no space. let's say I want to give it, at least 3 millimeters of space. So I add 3 to each side, or plus 6. That means 68. So that means if I make my axle 68 millimeters in length for my rear axle, that, I will have a space here of 3 mils on each side. So 3 millimeters on each side. I have that gap right there. And my total at that point will be different, but you know what I mean? So now it'll be 22 plus 22 plus 42. So that is 44 plus 42, which is 86. And if I pop back over here, hopefully that didn't, hopefully that was still recording. I couldn't tell. But if I pop back over here and I look at my specifications, you remember, right? My maximum width with wheels could be 3.5 inches or 90 millimeters. If we look back here, I am at 86, so I'm okay. So remember, I need a 68 millimeter axle now for the rear. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump over and draw that piece. And I'm gonna jump in here to the axle. And since I know that my axle is going to be, going through the car this way, I'm going to go ahead and draw it in the right side view as well. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to create a new sketch. The width of the axle is 3.175 or 1/8 of an inch, but 3.175 millimeters. So 3.175, enter. Blow this up so I can see it. I'm going to say okay. And I am going to extrude this 68 millimeters. Say okay. There you go. That's my rear axle. Now, just by looking at the drawing, I know for a fact my front one's going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this and just, rear axle and hit enter. And then I'm going to go ahead and create another part studio because I need another part, and I'm going to name this one front axle. I know it's going to be different. And I'm going to jump back over to my drawing and I'm going to try to figure out what that front axle looks like. So I know that it can, I can be up to 90 millimeters wide, but we don't even need to come close to that. So I want to place that same 3 millimeters of space between these wheels. So right here, they're going to end up being 3 millimeters of space between each one. So, nice little place so the wheels don't rub the body. Put that there. And I also know that these axles live 3 millimeters deep inside here. They slip up into the wheel by 3 millimeters. So from this 3 plus this 3 plus 42 would be 48. That's if I have it tight against it. 52 to the outside, but 48 from the axle length. Now we're just looking at overall axle length, right? If the axle's passing through here, same way we did with the rear wheel. So I need to add 3 plus 3 or 6 millimeters to this 48 if I want the wheels to stick out past the car body 3 millimeters on each side. So 54, and then I have 4 left over for on the wheels. This, what's left over on the overall thickness of the wheels. That's going to end up being 58 total. No worries. That's well within my 90. So 54 is more than perfect for my axle. So what I'm going to do is jump back over here, another quick draw, jump in the right, make a sketch, put a circle in the middle, pull it out, 3.175, zoom in on it so I can see it a lot easier, say okay to my sketch, and click here and extrude this. And I believe I said 58. If I didn't, I'll go back and change it. Let me go quickly look. Sometimes we just forget. That's why we write things down. No, 54. That's why we write things down, because it's easy to forget. I'm going to change that to 54. And I have my rear axle completely built. So at this point, for argument's sake, I have drawn a CO2 Dragster. I have drawn one that meets all of the specifications, meets all of the requirements. The only thing I do not know is whether or not my car meets the weight requirements. So to do that, and I showed this to you in a video all the other day, but let's just go look. Okay, so first thing is I'm going to jump out here and start measuring some stuff, and then I'm going to total those things up. I'm going to measure my rear wheel first. And the way I do this is I first have to assign properties to that wheel, have to tell the computer what the wheel is being made from. Because if this was being made from feathers, it would weigh a lot less than if it was being made from stone. So I have to go out here and click on my part, right click it, and it says assign material. So I'm going to assign material, and I am going to find PLA, because that's what I told you guys these were being made out of. So slide down here till, thankfully it's all alphabetic and not by density or something crazy like that. So I've assigned PLA as the density of my wheel. Now, if I click on my scales and I click on the part, it will tell you that it weighs 0.053 pounds. So what does that look like for a math equation? How do I apply my math skills? I have two of these, and it weighs 0.053 pounds. So, easiest way is just to jump out and, multiply 0.053 by 2, which will give you 60, which I did it so fast, I know I did it wrong. 6, 10, 1. So it weighs 0.106 pounds for 2. Now I'm going to write that down, and I need to convert this to something. So what was the car weight in? I have to jump over here, and I have to look. I have to think, and it says to somewhere it said maximum weight right here. Dragster body weight with wheels, minimum 45, maximum of 170. So I'm going to write those two things down, 45-170, just to keep things fresh in my head. And stick that little sticky note over there. And then, since it's being weighed in grams, what I wrote down, what I need to know is, how do I convert pounds, and I'm not going to do all that crazy math, to grams? Sure enough, there's this wonderful calculator right there. So I know my two wheels weigh 0.106 for 2. So those two wheels together, weigh 48.08079 grams. Wow, that's a lot. I know that's a lot, especially when I start thinking I'm already over my minimum weight for my vehicle just with my two rear wheels. But who knows? Maybe I'll still fall within the, right confines. So I'll jump over here and I'm just going to go ahead and check my front wheel. And I have to go back through the same process. That should have all been done. I need to go over here and add assigned material to this wheel. I need to go find the PLA. Jump down here, it should be getting close. So, and I say okay to that. Then I'm going to click my scales, click my wheel. It weighs 0.014. That's a quick, easy. That's a 0.028 for both. 0.028. And then go over here and type that in. Change this to 0.028. So that's 12.7. 12.70059 grams. So I'm still within weight. I'm still doing okay. I only have about 60. So as long as my car body doesn't weigh over 110 grams, I should be in pretty good shape. I can say, hey, here's my car. But, got to double check, got to do the math, got to use those skills, apply that math and engineering. So now I'm going to go ahead and look at my car body. I've already checked those things. I'm going to look at my car body. I need, I can go ahead and close that. I need to assign material to my car body. And I said forever, and 5 million times after, it is balsa wood. And here we go. There's the density of balsa wood. I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, now my car body is balsa. I'm going to click on this, select the object. It weighs 0.174 pounds. Okay, so at 0.174 pounds, here we go. We're going to find out real soon. 0.174, it weighs 78.92507 grams. All right, so now if I add up all those things, I pop in my calculator and I'm going to put in 48.08079 plus 12.70059 plus 78.92507, 139.7 grams. Now, I know as well as you know that with this, I'm good. I'm 30 grams underneath the total maximum. And I know that being 30 grams underneath the maximum, I just know, I know you don't know, but the two axles are not going to weigh 30 grams. That would be a lot. They'll be heavy, but the way this whole thing was always set up was for a no fail. It was set up so any student that would build this, that's why they have that 170 gram max on there. They knew if all they did was build the car to the specs with the worst design possible, and that's what I gave you. I gave you the worst design possible. I gave you the bare minimum that I would fall within getting an A for completing this dragster. So I hope that helps you. You can, if you got to here and you have all these parts and they're exactly the way I drew it, then you got an A on this assignment. On the other hand, if you want to consider, hey, the lighter the better, and that is very true, then, play with it. Round some edges, cut some pieces off, make your wheels cooler, do something for you. But this, ladies and gentlemen, this is all that was ever required from this assignment. I will add, It's only because I've been looking at people's work that's already came in. If you don't have these tabs across the bottom all named, if you don't have your document to where I can edit it when you share, if you have not done this math, then you are not getting the A. But this is what was required for you to pass this assignment. I hope you have a beautiful day. If I don't care how you drew your car, but this is the bare minimum. And when you look at the bare minimum, you go out and make sure you have at least the bare minimum. You have the tabs, you have measured and weighed the vehicle, you can prove that everything fits within the right space. Because if it does not, then you will lose points. Have a wonderful day. Let's see if I can stop this thing now. Stop my recording.